Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Madhava Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Praharana Yamuna Shiravanachari Yamuna Shiravanachari Yamuna Shiravanachari Yamuna Shiravanachari Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Vishnupada Bhagavan Bhakti Vedanta Swami Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Nandakari Vaishnava Nikajaya Prem Se Gol Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Radhastami Vasudeva Bhaktivedanta Shri Srila Krishna Gopinath Shama Kundavada Keli Govinda Dhamma Nikajaya Remuna Dhamma All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru.
Jai Shri Shri Guru Garam.
Liz, I really want to thank you for inviting me to be with you here today. I've heard about this wonderful group, and it's just so nice that you're meeting every week and getting together. It's so important, and you're such an integral part of ISKCON Toronto. And growing every year, more and more devotees from the Russian-speaking community, which is just amazing and wonderful. I don't speak a word of Russian, I'm sorry. I think I can say "niet." Is that a word? That's it. That's all I know. Yeah, but Canada's becoming more rich for all the devotees coming, and so many devotees are coming. It's wonderful. And may more come. And we have to help them to stay. Yeah, this is the problem, but anyway. So thank you very much. When Samahini asked me if I would like to do this, I said, well, what should I talk about? And she said, why don't you talk about the old days? Because we don't know too much about that. None of us were here. Oh. Well, okay, my feet are okay, but why not? So I was there, and there's a lot of things that you probably don't know that are interesting. So I thought I could talk to you about some of those things. I have some pictures of the old days. Not as many as I wished I'd had, but I have some. And I have some of these pages from this document. We had a reunion in 2002 for the 30th anniversary of the installation of Shri Shri Radhakirtan Gopinath. And we asked all the devotees who've been around at the time in the very early days to write something. So we have a little booklet. I just brought a few pages, but a little booklet with all kinds of stories so that we don't forget, it's important. So I can read from some of these as well. But I'm hoping that this can be more of a discussion than a lecture. So please, if there's something that comes to your mind that you'd like to say, oh, what about this or that, please say it. Don't wait. We're together to talk about the old days, and it's not just me talking. Please, if you have a question, comment, something comes to your mind, well, what about this, then please just ask me. So I came in 1972, at the beginning of 1972, when we had just moved to a house on Gerrard Street East, a small house. The devotees who were running the show were Jagadish and Lakshmi Moni. They were actually from the US. Might interest you to know that quite a few of our devotees at the time were draft dodgers. So they had left the US because they did not believe in the war in Vietnam. And at that time, Canada made it very easy to cross the border. They basically said, oh, you don't like the war in Vietnam? Then you're more Canadian than American. I wish it was so easy now. But anyway, so they came and they were running the temple. But we had other draft dodgers, devotees in our temple too, and they were all very nice devotees. Tens of thousands of people did come to Canada at that time. And quite a few became devotees, honestly. In every temple we had Americans that were fleeing the war. I guess it's that mentality that you like peace and love, and you don't want to kill people for nothing. It's just silly politics, So anyway, we had about, when I joined, there were only about, 14, 15 people living there at the time. It was a small group. Srila Prabhupada came twice to see us at that time, which was really amazing. This is one picture of him outside that Gerrard Street temple. Maybe you could just pass it around. He came.
Park?
Yeah, that's the park across the road that was full of tents until recently. Tents are gone now. That was Prabhupada getting out of the car and coming into the Gerrard temple at the time. That was 1975. Just thought this would interest you. This is someone you know at Gerrard Street Temple. Amazing, huh? Maharaj. His skinny self. I remember the day he arrived, actually. I came about a year before he did, and I remember going into the temple room and seeing him sitting at the side of the room, and he had long hair, super skinny. Oh yeah, he had these Lennon glasses, and he was sitting there. And I thought, oh, he's not going to last. And here he is. So you never know, right? That temple was quite, it was the way we started ISKCON Toronto, honestly. When Prabhupada came in 75, he said, you must get a building. This is not good. You have to get a building so that we can expand. But we didn't know, how the heck are we going to get a building? We didn't even have enough Lakshmi to buy boga. We were eating 3 chickpeas a day because there was no money, and we had very little to. I know one day an Indian gentleman came to the door and gave us 100-pound bags of rice. We were ecstatic. It was like, what a day! And, it was hard in those days. We had no way to make Lakshmi. So we were basically going out on the street and trying to distribute BTGs or something to just get a quarter or 50 cents, something like that. So we had very little money, and there were very few donors at the time because there were very few Indian people in Canada, just very few. So we didn't have a congregation, in order to work with. Anyway, but it was blissful. It was really blissful. We were like a big family. Everybody worked together. Everybody would go out on Harinam, on Sankirtan, which is basically Lakshmi collection, and BTG. And we all did deity worship, we all cooked, we all did everything. And we were like a big family. There was no real division of who would do what. And several of the devotees were married. They lived in the temple. Their kids were in the temple too. So it was like, honestly, it was like just a big family with kids running around and people all over the place, crammed into this tiny, tiny space with 2 bathrooms for about 80 people by the end of the time. Yeah. We used to have this shower in the morning. You had like 5 seconds. And someone would be timing. We'd be in a line with our towels. Okay. Done. Because there was no time. And the water was ice cold. Yeah, we had no hot water except for the kitchen. That was the rule. But we thought that was more Krishna conscious. So that's what we did. But it was blissful. It was super blissful. Our rooms where we slept were not even as big as this, maybe half this big. And there'd be like 15 ladies in one room. And we'd be sleeping bag on the floor with a little pillow. And no padding, no nothing, for years. And we'd be right beside each other. So if someone rolled over, you'd go, Prabhu, get back. Everybody was called Prabhu. Ladies, men, didn't matter. Prabhupada started that, we kept it. Everybody was our master. We were a servant of everybody. And it was a very nice feeling. Anyway, we had a lot of adventures on Gerrard Street. And we had a lot of fun. We had some really wonderful devotees there. One of them is Govinda Swami, who you probably know. He was our cook. His name was Ayojapati Prabhu. Ayojapati. That was his name. No. That would be good though. Yeah, that would be very good. Very clever. But no, he was a good cook. But the funny thing was, nobody knew how to cook. We didn't know how to cook. So what would happen every day? It was a crazy thing now when I think of it. But when we'd make the dal, we thought there was a way to make dal. So you boil the beans in a big pot. And then you make a chance in a frying pan with the spices. So they would throw all these spices into the frying pan. There'd be this smoke come up. And it would fill the entire building. Everyone would be choking and coughing. The children would be crying. I'd be like this, 15 minutes. This is how it went every day. So as soon as they were going to do the chants, they'd come to the kitchen door, chants! And then everyone would be like, and this is how we make the dal. Every day. It was so crazy. The kids would be crying, their little eyes running. Yeah. Anyway, then Subhuti, you all know Subhuti. She was our temple president here for a long time. She came. I don't know how they got into Canada early, but she was there. She started coming to the temple and she went, whoa, whoa, whoa. So she took Ayojapati under her wing. They went in the kitchen and she taught him how to cook. It was such a relief for everybody. And Subhuti is a wonderful cook. So then things improved greatly. The kitchen was a funny place. It was open to the backyard because there was no ventilation, so we had to keep the door wide open. So we had one time, just to show you how funny Govinda Swami is and how amazing, just something he did. I was in there too. We were cooking, and these wasps started coming, so many, and they were biting us. They were bad. They were aggressive, bad wasps. So he was like, look out, Praharana! What are you going to do? So he took this strainer and he just would go through the air like this and whack them into the sink of water so that they would drown. Yeah. So he was doing this all morning when we were cooking. I was like, they're never going to stop. And he said, yes, we have to do something. And then he said, I know. Prabhupada gave us the ideal thing to do when something is attacking you. And I said, what's that? You know. So he took 2 of the dead ones and he went out on the back, on the porch, and he took pins and he stuck them to the wood, these dead wasps. And he said, that will warn all the other wasps. This is what Prabhupada said to do in Vrindavan. If the monkeys are very bad, they take one dead monkey, they hang it up on the post, and all the other monkeys stay away. So he said, this is the situation, we fixed it. And you know, they stopped coming.
Oh, really?
And they weren't so bad. Yeah. So that's just the way he was always fun. we would come in from Harinam, it'd be freezing cold. We'd come in and he would have these little round paper cups that had the pointy ends, and he'd have them full of hot burfi, and he would give them to everyone as we came in the building. He was just like that, very sweet man. Anyway, he was also from the US, so you see, we were blessed with some really good people who came. New Remuna in the early days was a very interesting place. We were, well, this is kind of the group. This is when we first moved to, oh no, this is at Gerrard Street. This is at Gerrard Street. Yeah, you can see there's not an Indian there. We're all just kids from Canada. And one time we needed to rent a truck to get flowers at the airport. Not one person in the temple was 25 years old to rent the truck. Not one. We didn't know what to do. So we called Subhuti.
Is it age requirement?
There was an age requirement. Now I don't think there is. You had to have a license and be 25. So Uddhama Sloka, our president, was going through the temple going, who's 25 with a license? Nobody. So it was really funny. We were all under 25. Except Subhuti, who was about 37 or 8. So she was able to rent the truck. So she saved us in many ways. Subhuti, our hero. So Gerrard Street was very blissful, but very, very austere. And I don't think that's so unusual. I mean, I read the book about, what's it called, Salted Bread in Russia, how it was. Very similar, very difficult. We had persecution as well. There was a man called Ted Patrick who wanted to make money by deprogramming devotees. So he would go to their parents and get thousands of dollars to kidnap the devotee, take them to some hotel, and try to deprogram. Well, that happened to 2 of our devotees in Toronto. And there were only about 25 of us at that time. So that was a lot. They went to my parents, too.
Is that legal? Is that legal?
Is that what?
Legal.
No, of course not. Totally not legal. It was crazy. But the police, you know, we didn't say anything. We weren't much into the police and that. We just mind our business. So that got into the papers, these 2 devotees who got kidnapped. One came back, one never did. The one that came back was Rudrani, and she was kidnapped for about a year. Yeah, it's crazy. So, but it was in the papers, and we had some crazy people think that they had to do something about us. So we actually had some nights when we had to kind of stay down from the windows because we heard there was someone with a gun outside. So, yeah, we had problems. One time we were sitting in Bhagavatam class and someone got a phone call, like it was just one phone for the temple. Someone answered the phone, they said they put a bomb in the temple. And there had been a bomb in the US a few days earlier, and people did get hurt. So we thought, what should we do? So we sat there in the class, you know, thinking what to do. And we decided that we'll just sit here and have class, because if the bomb goes off, we'll go back to God. It was sort of naive and silly when you think about it now. We should have run outside, you know. Krishna and Prabhupada didn't want us to die, they wanted us to do some service. But anyway, that's what we did. There was no bomb, nothing happened. But this is the kind of faith we had, how engaged we were, how much we were dedicated and ready to do anything for Prabhupada, even die in a bomb. It was crazy. We used to have classes, and we had a Sanskrit scholar who was very keen on us learning 1,000,000 verses. And we would sit there and he would be like a professor, you know, like 6'4", 6'7", and we'd be scared. Ooh! The deities were behind curtains at the front of the room. And a couple of the girls were so scared that they would duck under the curtains and sit with the deities, even when they were sleeping. Really beautiful things. And we were all so sleep deprived, we could barely keep our eyes open. It was ridiculous the way it was. 6 hours, no more, but people didn't even get 6 hours. We had squirt bottles. Maybe you had also in your countries. These water squirt bottles, and during japa, every time you start to nod up, squirt it. Yeah, and devotees who were giving class, it was famous. They would be like, and Krishna says, all the time. Shh. We had someone sitting by the speaker, squirt, squirt, wake them up. Yeah, we were kids, it was fun. One time we had a class and we were all falling asleep. And one devotee was standing up near the door and she fell on the light switch and turned it on. The whole room went dark. And you know what the devotee said? The reaction was, So funny. I had a friend, Urvasi, who used to put the deities to sleep and chant her Gayatri on Dandabats in front of the altar, and we'd always find her there in the morning. She'd never make it up to the bed. Yeah, so it was a fun time. It was amazing. We were all very close, very, very nice, until about 1975. Then things started to change. Then the Radha Damodar party started going all around the US. They were, I know the history is glorious, they made so many devotees, all this. But honestly, they would come to temples, they would take all the men, all the madongas, and all the boga. Honestly. But they thought it was the right thing because they were out there making devotees. So you know what we did? We called the Canadian border and we told them they were thieves and not to let them over. They didn't get over. So we didn't lose everything. But they did have this philosophy that women were the bad thing. Women were Maya. They thought all of us should get on a ship and go to Australia. That was what they were saying. It was weird. At one point, we had to leave the temple, rent a place to live, because we were ladies, and we could come and do service, but not be seen. So we could cook, do deity worship behind the curtains, of course, do the sankirtana and money collection, are you kidding? But just not be seen. It was so silly, honestly. And the devotees had all been together for so many years, and everyone kind of knew who was going to marry who, you know, eventually. You know, kind of get that feeling. Oh, they like that one. Yeah, she likes him, you know. So the women, we got an offer to go to Chicago. They were going to fly us all to Chicago. We could do Sankirtan there. And of course, they were happy. We collected money. There were like 10 of us. And so we didn't want to leave Radha Gopinath. So we had a meeting with the men. We decided what we were going to do. We had a meeting with the men and we said, this is the ultimatum. Either you all get married now and stop this stupid nonsense, or we're all going to Chicago. So they were like, oh. So they went and had a meeting. They discussed, what are we going to do? They do all the deity worship, they do all the cooking, they do all the collection. What are we going to do? We need these ladies. They just need to be not seen. So anyway, they decided, okay, we will get married. I think they really wanted to tell you that there's nobody like this arrangement. But they said, but you have to ask us. We're not going to ask you. Like, whatever. So right there in front of everyone, Tribhuvaneshwari got down on her knees in front of Vicharu and said, Prabhu, will you marry me? I think you would be a wonderful husband in Krishna consciousness. And we were like, wow. And he said, I would be happy to marry you and you will help my Krishna consciousness. And then everybody like dominoes, they fell down. But some of the men would wear white dhoti, orange kurta. Oh my God. For weeks. They just couldn't get used to the idea. Then we had a big fire jagga. I was one of the ones who got married at that time. We had a big fire jagga. Yojapati gave a 2-hour lecture on household life and how it was good and Krishna conscious and that it would help everyone and make our temple stronger and better. He was married at the time. So we started a whole new life. We moved back into the temple. Everything changed. Of course, the women all just lived in the temple. It was the same as we were Brahmacharinis, but we were back in the temple. So these are kind of the crazy things that young kids do when they're trying to be part of a movement, don't really understand everything, had no concept of Indian culture at all. None. And most of us had been hippies. So, it was like, what the heck is all this? So we'd learn to cook, we'd learn to live together nicely, we'd learn to make some Lakshmi. And we were doing pretty good. Then Prabhupada came. And Prabhupada said, now you need a building. And we were like, whoa. So we looked at these different buildings. We looked at one over by Casa Loma. It was nice, probably not big enough. And I was part of the looking committee. Then we came and saw this place. We thought, wow, $450,000. I don't know. That's how much it was. 50,000.
Only?
Yeah. But then it was like 20 million for us. So Prabhupada had some, he got information about the temple and he said, yeah, buy it. And he told him a sloka, there must be anxiety, you go and get that place. So we go on the street, hours, pinning little flowers, selling. Bhakti Mark Swami was out in the van with Krishna Das up north, selling paintings, candles. We just did everything. We'd come back at night with cans full of Lakshmi, pour it on the carpets we had, and put it all in those little paper things for the bank. This is how we made money to buy this temple. And it went on for a long time. We were doing it. And then the BBT gave us $100,000, which was the down payment we needed. And Subhavalas Prabhu, Indrash's father, he was able to swing a deal with the bank because he had some influence with the bank. So we were able to make the offer. But then the Christians who owned the church said, I'm not selling to you. You people are heathens. You don't love Jesus. We can't give you our church. So we're like, after all that, and Prabhupada wants it, what are we going to do? So we just waited, thought, okay, we have to find another place. Then we got a call from the bank. The people who had bought it had foreclosed. They couldn't make the payment. So the bank sold it to us. And the Christians had no say. We even asked Prabhupada, can we tell the Christians that we'll put Jesus on the altar? He said, yeah, sure. He did. I thought, how are we going to worship Jesus? Is he vegetarian? I don't know what to do. Because I was head pujari. I didn't know, this is weird. But anyway, yeah, so Prabhupada got his temple. It was him. He wanted it, it happened. Somehow they foreclosed, the bank made the arrangement, we got it because Prabhupada wanted it, absolutely for sure. Then he came again to Toronto to see. So he came and we just started the work. The temple room was full of pews, like in churches, those benches people sit on, they're called pews. It was full, the balcony too. The front of the temple was like a Christian altar, with a big bathtub at the back, because they were Baptist and they used to have the dunking ceremony. That hollow shell-like looking shape was full of the pipe organ. So all these pipes going up there. We had to rip all this up. Now we regret it in the past. Like, why didn't we leave the benches up in the balcony? That might have been good. But anyway, we sold them all for peanuts and they were worth so much money. They were beautiful oak. Anyway, we were just in a rush. And we built the altar, we put the gates, and then the very, very special day when we moved the deities here. That was incredible. And I was head pujari, so I was very nervous and worried about how to do it properly, but it all worked out great. And then after that, Prabhupada, I don't know why it happened, well, I know why it happened, because it was Prabhupada, but he was there preaching from upstairs, and all of a sudden, we had a full temple room. Where'd they come from? I don't know. Like they'd never come before. And then they all started coming and coming and coming. And then the temple started growing and growing. This whole basement was it was terrible actually. The floors were just dirt with some plywood on top, and they were all saggy, and bugs would come up because it was just dirt. And a lot of the wood was rotten. So especially where the prasadam room is now, that was really bad. We had so many mice. We had a cat named Kali. Kali was fantastic. So there was so much work to do. There were Sunday school rooms from the old church with just this pull across plastic dividers. So those were the rooms where devotees slept. And the kitchen was awful, really awful. It was very small and terrible, and we had to do a whole new kitchen. So it was a lot of work and, of course, a lot of fundraising. But with more people coming, it became a little easier. So since then, things have changed a lot. We were still a happy family in those days, even though Radhastami was trying to do crazy things. I still feel some... I try to forgive, but it caused so much distress and so much anxiety, and so many people left that it's hard to really feel really clear about it, but I try to. Anyway, I thought I could tell you, is there any comments or questions about all that I've said? Yes?
Who were those people who came? Were they Indians?
Yeah, Indians. We didn't know there were so many in the country. They appeared. It was crazy. I was like, oh. Just like we did all these renovations and the Bhakti Academy appeared. When you do things, things happen. That's the way it is in Krishna consciousness. You make something happen and Krishna does the rest. So they all appeared. But that was a very rough time, because after Prabhupada left, that was the zonal acharya business. And we were very unfortunate to have as our zonal acharya Kirtanananda, who was, I don't know, he got hit on the head with a pipe. And all I can think is that affected the way he could think. That's the way I think of him in a nice way, that he couldn't help it. So he made so much difficulty. Like, for instance, if somebody got initiated here, a Canadian, someone we had made a devotee, they had 10 days to move to New Vrindavan. That was the rule. If you didn't do that, you weren't initiated anymore. So we make devotees, we grow our congregation, and he's trying to undo everything. He said, you sell that building, everyone goes to New Vrindavan. Well, we didn't want to do that. We had our own place here. We were trying to do what Prabhupada said to do. Anyway, it was tough years, very tough.
That was when Prabhupada was still on earth?
No, after he left. Then they had those zonal acharyas, 12, 13 zonal acharyas who ruled the world, basically. And they didn't work together.
That was for about 10 years, right?
Oh, too long. Yeah, finally the GBC stopped it and made all these new gurus sanctioned by the GBC and by the nice process of getting nominated by everyone who knows them. So it was good. Then things got better.
Was one of them?
Kirtananda was one of the 13, yeah. He had done wonderful things in the beginning, Prabhupada liked him. He'd done wonderful things, getting New Vrindavan going. He was staunch.
So something changed about him, or?
He got a hit on the head. We think maybe that's it. Or maybe just the power. I don't know. We never knew. He caused so much difficulty. Like, I wouldn't send my children to that guru. There's no way. So we had a lot of difficulty dealing with all that. But anyway, as things went on, Bhaktivedanta Swami became our GBC. And he's very people-centric. He likes to help devotees. He's not into power and prestige and all. So everything changed and we became calm and nice again. And then things started growing again. And then more and more people came. But you see that picture, you wonder, where are all these people? Where did all these people go? Well, once the zonal acharya thing came, a lot of them went to New Vrindavan because they had to. Some of them went to Los Angeles, some went to England, some went to Alachua. So most of them are still devotees, they're just not in Toronto. I know them all and I'm connected to them all. Some have left their bodies, quite a few actually. But all these people, they didn't just bloop. They went to other places away from Kirtananda, is basically what it is. Yeah.
So question, why they have to go to Vrindavan?
Because Kirtananda wanted to have complete control over them. Yeah.
So as soon as you get initiation, you give 10 days and you have to go to
Move to New Vrindavan.
So was it withdrawing people to take initiation because they didn't have to go to Vrindavan?
Well, that was a big problem. But you wanted to get initiated, but you didn't want to go to New Vrindavan. So, yeah, it was very tough. We didn't know how to handle it. What do? You can pass these around. My ex-husband was the temple president, and Kirtananda would come and he would, I don't know, he'd be so hostile and angry at everybody. But we just stood our ground. We're not going to sell the temple. We're not going to move to New Vrindavan. So most people did it though because he was their guru. What can you do? And thinking, oh, I'll come back again. But a lot of them couldn't come back again. It wasn't that easy. But you know, going to another country in those days, to go to the United States, you didn't even need a passport. You just needed a driver's license. There were no computers. No one had a record of you entering the country. You could go there and stay there for years. Lila Kata, my good friend, you might know her, she's French-Canadian, little devotee. She went there. Her sons were all born there. Vibhu is one. And they lived there for 25 years. Nobody, Americans didn't know. Until Vibhu went to get a driver's license, and they said, who the heck are you? Nobody knew they were there. So that's, if you don't need a job, if you just work for the temple, then how do they know? So many people went. Yes, Prabhu.
You mentioned a few times Harinams. I'm just wondering, like, how was those Harinams accepted by locals? What was the mood and like?
Harinams were crazy. We went down to Yonge Street, and Yonge Street at the time was terrible. All these strip clubs everywhere, and it was ridiculous. And there were all these other groups, like Children of God, and they used to wear these hoods and big black robes, and they'd walk around telling us, "You're going to hell." You know? We would go down to Yonge Street. We'd stay close together. They'd put the women in the middle, the men on the outside, and we'd try to fend off all these crazy people. And we'd have a great Harinam, and then we'd go back and try to ignore all the strip clubs, all the disgusting people, all the Children of God, and all these other wild people. And then we'd get back to the temple just in time for the 8 o'clock arti. That was very nice. We did a lot, and we had in the winter we had winter clothes that were all the same. So even our saris and dhotis were all the same. We just took one and put it on, because the ladies who were not married, we just ripped off 6 yards off of a bolt of orange cloth. We all wore saffron, and I was the head pujari, so I put PD with a magic marker on the corner of mine, so it would be a little cleaner, so people would avoid that one. But we all just took one off the railing and put it on. Nobody had their own thing, anything. We weren't attached, right? So, and the householders, they all had the white ones, but when they washed it with ours, they turned yellow. So that's why they wore yellow. This is early picture of Radha Gopinath. I think I dressed them that day. So it was kind of fun time, kind of crazy too. All kinds of stories about things. But the Harinam was interesting because we all wore the same boots, which were these moon boots we got donated. They were all size 10. So if you're a woman, you couldn't really walk. You had to just push your feet like this. They were really warm. And then there was long underwears made of wool that itched like crazy. So we were down there, but it kept you alert. Itchy underwear. Yeah, it's funny. We had the same coats. They were all huge on the women. We looked so ridiculous, honestly. I don't know what people thought of us on Yonge Street. But we did it every day. Later on, we started thinking, we should present ourselves better. We should look better. I mean, those are the days when they used to do sankirtana as Santa Claus, too. The men would all dress up like Santa Claus, beard, hats, everything. So we did funny stuff in those days. Any other comments or questions about early life at Gerard? I just wanted to talk a bit about the deities. Okay.
I wanted to ask you what attracted you to Krishna consciousness, like the original pushed to become a
To become one of this strange group?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? I was at University of Western Ontario. I was studying science. I was in my last year. And I was sitting on the hill, reading something. I was kind of a hippie. I smoked a lot of marijuana, I admit. And, you know, wasn't happy with my life. I wasn't happy. I wanted to know, who is God? I went to all the clubs on campus, Baha'i, the Christians, everything. None of them appealed to me. None of them. They just seemed weird. So then I was sitting on the hill and these devotees got out of the van from Toronto and they came up the hill and they gave me this paper and said, we're having a free meal at 6 in the hall there. Come and have something to eat. And I looked at him, I thought, you are so weird. He had beads around as big as golf balls. He had crazy hair with a giant sika. I mean, the devotees looked so weird. And I just thought, okay, no. So, but by 6 o'clock, I got a little curious and a little hungry, so I went. And I picked up one of those Sri Upanishad. We only had a couple of books in those days. Just a few. The Blue Bhagavad Gita, Sri Upanishad, Journey to Other Planets, and 3 Bhagavatams, the first canto. We didn't have much. Then Krishna book came up. So anyway, I read Sri Upanishad, and as a scientist, if you think about the first few verses, it made such sense about balance, harmony, who owns what makes things happen. It just was like, whoa, finally something makes sense. So, and then I kept waking up in the morning, my alarm would be Govinda Maripurusha. What the heck? Because that was a hit song. It was a hit song. So when the radio would come on to wake me up, it was always that song. So I got more interested. I started chanting a bit, and then when the devotees came, I would meet with them more. And then at the end of the year, I decided I'm going to just try it. So I moved into the ashram. My parents were freaked right now. That's what I did, and I stayed. So I think a lot of us came like that.
Did they hire someone to kidnap you?
You know, they contacted them. They really did. But fortunately, my father had been a pilot in World War II. He fought, they sent all the Canadians to England, so he was flying out of England. He was flying cargo to India. So he was taking planes to Mumbai, dropping off stuff and coming back, and to Egypt. And he said to the deprogrammer, and he told me to, when I was in India, I went to some temples and I saw it's the same figures there. I don't think what they're doing is weird. I think I don't want my daughter there. I don't know why she's there, but it's not made up and it's not terrible. She's not doing drugs, she's doing all these good things.
Yeah, comparing to marijuana, so it was a better thing.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, yeah, so my father kind of saved me there. Otherwise, they might have hired that deprogrammer too. But they didn't. My mother never liked it. She used to cry. Every time she saw my girls, pictures of them in saris, she'd cry. You know, ugh. Anyway, what can you do?
Did they eventually accept it?
The what?
Did they eventually accept your way of living?
They hated where I lived.
Yeah, but I mean, eventually,
So
over the years.
have they accepted?
Well, my father died. My mother has died now too, but no, she never accepted it. My father kind of was, well, whatever. He didn't like it. He thought I should do what every other nice girl does and find a job and then find a man with money and then get married and do the proper things. Anyway, I was just, but you know what? At that time, there were so many hippies and so many people doing alternative things that I don't think they were so shocked. I was actually looking for a commune where people lived in trees and did things like that. That was sort of what I was looking for when I met the devotees. So this is probably a relief that it wasn't that crazy. I wasn't out in British Columbia in a tree. Many devotees were and came from a commune in BC. They were living in trees.
Was it some kind of community that lives there, or?
Yeah, there was a community there.
So was it very popular?
Yes, there were hundreds of people living there in this forest. And several became devotees.
Even in winter time?
Yes. Well, BC isn't so cold, but still,
Yeah, right.
but still bad, I know. No, they did Purnamasi, Krishna Das's wife. She was one of those people who lived in a commune out in British Columbia. Yeah, interesting.
I'm sorry, what are these people?
This is Krishna Das and Murli Krishna in a play, one of Bhakti Marg's early plays. I think it was Big Fish, Little Fish. Yeah, Krishna Das was one of the best actors. He was always in the plays. He was really good. And Bhaktivedanta Swami used to be in the plays too. He's a really good actor too. Anyway, our plays are fantastic. I don't know how much time we have, but I wanted to just tell you about the deities. Because you probably don't know a few things about the deities. So Radha Gopinath, Lakshmi Moni wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada in December 1971 and said, can we have deities? I think we're ready. And Prabhupada said, regarding your inquiry about deities, I've just this minute finished a letter to Kaushalya, who is presently in Jaipur, to purchase many sets of deities. I have instructed her to remain there and fill all the orders, including Toronto. So I think it's a good opportunity. Get hold of her right away and instruct her. Send some money, although we are going to go to local rich men for purchasing. And then they came September the following year. They kind of got lost in a warehouse in New York. And Lakshmi Moni and Jagadish drove down there and brought the deities for Dallas, Detroit, and Toronto, all to Buffalo. And then they came and picked up their deities and took them home.
So it was 72.
72. They were installed Radhastami, 1972. There was a bit of a problem with Detroit and Dallas. You might not even notice, but the deities got mixed up. That one has a Radha that's supposed to be with the other Krishna. They just got taken to the wrong place. But Prabhupada said, never mind, that they're happy. So they stayed. We got the smallest pair because our temple was so small. There was no place. The altar was it was like as big as those two tables, honestly, very small. So, yes, so and Prabhupada said, it appears it is Krishna's desire to come to Toronto at this time. And he came. So then we just started, there was no place to buy anything to make deity clothes. There was no Little India, no fancy saris, nothing. And nobody went to India in those days. So we just bought fancy cloth and we put on our own stones, our own beads, our own sequins, and we made all the clothes ourselves. I was the one who was fortunate enough to go in when the deities, before they were installed, when they were just being cleaned and painted, and I made all the patterns for the blouses, and I made cloth patterns that fit perfectly, and then we made all the sets for the deities, and when they were installed, I think we had 7. We had really worked hard day and night. So those deities were very special, but they came after our other deities. Now you probably wonder, or maybe you never wondered, but Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda, our beautiful Neem deities, we didn't just get them from India and install them. We had ordered some, but they hadn't come. What happened in 1973, we had small brass deities of Gaurnitai, and we had a large Panchatattva picture, like a painting. So, but we wanted the big Neem deities. We'd seen them at other temples, and we want those. So, so we were praying that they would come, that we would have Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda join us in Toronto, help us with the sankirtana, help us with being enlivened in Krishna's service. You know, Lord Chaitanya is very powerful. So, funny enough, Sudam Swami came to visit Toronto. He was a sannyasi at the time who had a couple of vans full of men, and they came to do sankirtan or give class, this sort of thing. He was He's passed away. That's why you don't know him. But he came to Toronto, and he was preaching, and in the back of his van were two gorgeous neem deities of Gaur Nitai. And we looked at them, and we sort of went, wow. You could see that in the van they were jostling around. You could see some scratches, and that it was not appropriate for them to be traveling in a van. So what happened was that we said to Srila Swami, why don't we give you our little brass deities and we'll take Gaur Nitai for Toronto. And then we checked with Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, yes, good idea. They shouldn't be in that van. They're too fragile. They're wood. So we did a switch. And we installed, Hare Krishna Prabhu. We installed Gaur Nitai on the altar. And he took the installed Radha Krishna with him in his van for sankirtana. And we've had them ever since. So you see, they came completely unsolicited. Krishna sent them. Or Lord Chaitanya wanted to come. Those are very special deities. So whenever you look at those deities, you can think they came of their own will to Toronto for the devotees. Montreal Temple got an identical set, but from India. They didn't come like we got our special delivery. So anyway, after that, we felt really, really enlivened to do more book distribution. We felt Lord Chaitanya was there, helping us every step. It was so enlivening to have them arrive. Now I want to tell you about the little Radha Krishna. Do you know the tiny little Radha Krishna in front of Radha Gopinath? They're just really small, right? Okay, I'll just read this to you. This is quite a crazy story. Okay, La Bangalatika was a resident at the Montreal Temple. Her little son, Dwarkadish, was a Gurukula student in New Vrindavan. It was 1971. La Bangalatika had an attraction to the small brass Radha Krishna deities that were installed on the altar and decided that she would take them, along with all their paraphernalia, as a gift to her son in West Virginia as a birthday present. Installed deities. This is how crazy things could be in those days, right? We didn't know much. So one morning she took the deities off the altar with all their dresses, crowns, and caught the train for Toronto, because she was going to catch the bus to New Vrindavan from here. So the devotees in Montreal went to do their deity worship. The deities are gone. And those were their main deities. They had no other deities. So they were like, what? So they called Toronto Temple. Stop her, stop her. She's abducted Radha Krishna. And she did arrive, and she had the deities wrapped up on all their stuff. And she was like, I'm so sorry, I thought you had more. I didn't know. Crazy. So Jagadish was the temple president. He wasn't sure what to do. The deities had arrived in Toronto. They were installed deities. They should be worshipped. They were probably hungry. They'd been hours of traveling. Nobody taking care of them. So he called Srila Prabhupada. It was nice when you could call Srila Prabhupada in those days and get an answer for something, right? But when you called India, you had to scream into the phone. So, Haribo! It's like you were yelling all the way to India. It was terrible, the connections. Anyway, he called, and Srila Prabhupada listened to the whole story. And then he said, well, I don't think you should be worried about this. Radha Krishna want to be in Toronto. Plain and simple. So they were then installed on the altar and been there ever since. And Montreal got some new deities. So that's the story of those deities. I just think that's a kind of a cool thing. Now when you look at those deities, you know how they came here and why we're so attached to them. Because they came unsolicited. They came because they wanted to come. And the La Bangalatik and Sudam Swami, they were just instruments in Krishna's plan. So.
Do you know how our deities got this name?
Yes. Oh, I certainly do. I was there. So that's a very, very sweet, wonderful story. So when we were making the clothes for Gopinath, we would go in, I would make sure everything fitting. We would, they were just standing there with nothing on in the back room. And Lakshmimoni and I were in there one day, and we were just sort of trying things on, make sure it fits. And I said, look, Gopinath has a real little tummy. He does. He has a real tummy. Like a child's tummy, He's not flat. So she said, yeah. So then we thought maybe Krishna, maybe he's like a young boy for us, and Radha is a young girl. We were making up stuff, Anyway, Lakshmimoni was on the phone with Prabhupada with some questions about what to do for the installation, how to worship them properly, all that. And she mentioned, Prabhupada, our Gopinath has a really round little tummy. And Prabhupada laughed. I was standing by the phone. He laughed and he said, oh yes. Your Krishna loves Kheer. He is Kheer Char Gopinath. And Kheer is sweet rice. So Prabhupada said, so just like in Remuna in India, they have Kheer Char Gopinath deity, and they offer him special kheer every night. You must do the same. So a lot of devotees have gone to Remuna in India to see that deity and to try their kheer. We tried very hard to make the same kind of kheer, but it's very difficult. It's a very special recipe. But anyway, so from the installation day, that very day, until today, 50 years later, they get 12 little bowls of kheer every single night before bed. And they are Kheer Char Gopinath. And if you know the story of Kheer Char Gopinath, remember that with Madhavendra Puri? And how merciful Kheer Char Gopinath was? Like he was hiding the sweet rice under his dhoti to give to Madhavendra Puri. Like he's the most merciful, wonderful Krishna. We're so fortunate. Like he's not like some of those Radha Govinda or, the kind of scary. He is Kheer Char Gopinath, the most kind, giving, loving Krishna. So that's where that came from, and that's why we're New Remuna. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what time it is now. I don't want to go over if your time is, it's 12, is it?
We typically start at this time.
Any more comments or anything you'd like to, I could say many more things, but I don't want to.
What about Lord Jagannath?
I don't know. Lord Jagannath was here when I came. Very early we had Lord Jagannath. I must say, the first day I walked into the temple, this is the mind, the conditioned mind, I walked in the temple, I saw those deities and I went, whoa, this is too weird for me. Because I couldn't figure them out. And then they had Tulsi Puja, and they were worshiping a plant, and I was like, okay, I'm going home. I really freaked me out. So then after that, whenever somebody new came, I made sure to take them in and explain Jagannath to them and Tulsi Puja to them so they didn't have the same trauma that I had. I don't know where they came from. I should ask Lakshmimoni. I think they were there from the beginning and I don't know where they got them. But I should find out. The big Jagannaths that are behind them, the little Jagannaths, they are not installed. They are for Rath Yatra. That's why they don't have all the same clothes as the little ones. They only get changed once a week because they're not installed. You can't really take an installed deity on a Rath Yatra cart. It's too dangerous. And so we got them just for Rath Yatra. So that's the story about them. And Leela Kata and I have done the touch-ups on them many times. It's very nice during Snana Yatra when you can go back there and paint and fix any little things. It's so nice. She's our Jagannath artist, Leela Kata. Any other questions? Yes?
You mentioned that you addressed each other as Prabhu, even women, and this is how Srila Prabhupada started it. did Srila Prabhupada address women also as Prabhu?
Yes.
Not Mataji? Because
He did.
for us, maybe for most of us with Russian background,
I know.
Ukrainian background, it's kind of unusual.
I know.
One day, one Mataji or Prabhu couple came up to me in the altar room, and I was the only one there. And they addressed me as Prabhu, Prabhu, and they're calling, and I'm not reacting because it's probably not me, I'm not Prabhu.
I know. Well, this is the thing. Prabhupada was very lenient with us in the beginning. He was very kind. He wanted things to be simple. So if the men were Prabhu, the women were Prabhu. Just make it easy. Everybody's a servant of everybody. We didn't know anything about Bengali or tradition. And there was nobody around who could say to us, well, that's not really right. So a lot of people like myself who are old Prabhupada disciples, they don't like Mataji. And I'll tell you why, because when all this started happening with Radha Damodar, Tamal Krishna Goswami, some of these sannyasis who were just, whoa, Tripurari, they just were so hard on us. And we were sincere. It was very hurtful. And so they started calling us Matajis, like that. So everybody would say Matajis, and on the men, even our own men would be like, oh, you have to stay over in your own apartment, Matajis. We don't want to see you. The love was gone. So Mataji for us doesn't feel good. Malati, if you call her Mataji, she'll say, don't say that. Yeah. Me, I don't care. I'm more used to it now. I'm okay. But Malati and some other devotees like myself, they just don't want to hear Mataji. It sounds bad.
Probably made a big mistake in Vaishnava Sangha.
No, it's okay. It's just, you should probably just ask, do you prefer to be called Prabhu?
It was just that we didn't know.
We didn't know.
You know what I asked her? And she told me it doesn't matter. Like,
Malati?
calm down, yeah.
Oh, it matters.
Now we know.
I'm very close with Malati. She'll say it doesn't matter, and then she'll call me later.
But what is the good way, like how to address her? Like Malati Devi Dasi?
Yes, that's what she likes. Malati Devi Dasi. Yes. Malati Dasi, something like that.
May I ask also?
I say Prabhu to everybody.
Okay.
It's just my habit. It feels right to me. And I know people give me funny looks. I don't care.
So for devotees, women devotees here, if we call them Prabhu, it's okay, right? It's not like...
I think in Bhakti Academy they do, don't they? Yeah. I know Vishaka, I call her Prabhu, she calls me Prabhu. It's like no big deal. It's loving. We're all the same. There's no distinction. We're all servants of the servants. It's kind of nice. Yeah. Yes?
If you don't mind asking, at the beginning when you mentioned that when you saw Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, maybe I don't know if it was the first time and you thought that he won't last. What was the reason behind? Like, if you don't mind asking.
He just looked so, I don't care. Like he didn't know what was going on. And I know that first day when you're in the temple, like I got freaked out by Jagannath Tulsi worship. He was sitting by the wall, I remember. And I looked at him and I thought, he looks very nice, but he looks very nervous. I don't think he's going to stay. He'll probably leave by the end of the day. Because we had lots of people come and lots of people go. And as soon as they walked in the temple, we'd shave them. Put dhoti on. The moment I walked in the temple, Lakshmi Muni came downstairs. First word she said, not, hello, welcome. She said, get her upstairs, put a sari on her, do something about that hair. It's like, whoa. So there was a bit of a fanaticism. But he looked just very intimidated, like he didn't know what was going on. But after a few days, he looked blissful. It's just something to get used to, I remember thinking to myself, I hope they feed him because he's really skinny.
He was very young.
He was young, very young, very young. He'd just come from school. He met the devotees up in Sudbury. And the traveling devotees were very sweet and kind to him. I know who they were. So when he came to the temple, he was just sort of like under the ocean, like, what is going on here? But soon he fit right in. Yeah. And he You know, he was so austere. He would go up north with Krishna Das when we were collecting for the temple. They had a van that always broke down, always needed tire changes. It was really cold. They slept in it. And for the morning bath, they would, you know, there's so many rivers up north. If they had to, they would just break the ice and pour the water. Like they just were so austere. But they made a lot of Lakshmi for buying this temple. They just went, they had pictures. I think they sell pictures all over the world, but these pictures from China, they were decent. People liked them. So they sold those all over the place. And he was up north for years doing this service. Very tough service. That's before he started walking. He was driving. He liked being out of the temple. He liked being out and relating to people, and you know, he always liked that. Anything else? Yeah, he's my. I feel like Bhaktivedanta Swami is my brother. We're like brother and sister. We're always like that. So he comes back and he goes, Praharana, you know. We're just like. Yeah, it's nice to have siblings who are your devotee friends. Yeah.
You mentioned that before there were church benches. And
Yes.
you sold them for peanuts.
Like for very little money. That's an English
That's the
acronym.
expression. Okay.
Yeah, it's just an expression. We sold them very cheap because there were so many. We wanted to get them out. People were so happy. $10, I'll take 4. Like they were worth a lot. If you look at the temple room floor, have you ever seen on the temple room floor like a mark? It looks like tilak.
Yes.
That's where the benches were screwed down. That's what they are. That's
like tilak.
I know that, but it's where the benches had these metal things sticking out. The screw went down. I was helping taking those out. There were hundreds of them. So
Yeah, it was
no, those are left from the old pews. And you know, we've thought many times of replacing that floor, but we've never found a floor so nice. That floor, it can withstand anything. There was a big fire in this church, you know. The part over Tulsi Devi was completely burnt and the roof was completely gone. That was a few years before we bought the place. If you go up in the attic, there's still charred beams you can see. But they put that floor in then. So that was so long ago, like 50s or something. And that floor is still fantastic. Yeah. It's not cold. It withstands everything, and you've got tilak all over it.
It's the main.
Now you know the tilak is not actually tilak. You can pretend. It's a sign. I think it's a sign, yeah. Yeah. Yes?
May I ask one popular question?
Sure.
Because knowing that you were kids, right? Had no skills to pretty much to live. As you grew, you will learn how to do things, right? So here comes the unpopular question. What was the other source of making money for you other than selling books?
Well, you know, when Prabhupada first came to North America, and even into many years, he was encouraging devotees to stay in their job. He did not want us to move into the temple. He only wanted a few pujaris. He wanted everyone to keep their job. He said he wanted everyone to look respectable in society, to have their foot out in society and one in the temple. He thought that would make things grow better. When devotees wanted to quit their jobs, he would say, no. You keep working, you give the money to the temple. People see you're working, they see you're a respectable man. You know, like that. So then, so many people came who weren't working, and Prabhupada just started the ashrams. The women's ashram, the men's ashram. And we really made all the Lakshmi we lived on from the street, being on the street. There was hardly anything came from donations until the Indians started to come. But then when the Indians started to come, things got messed up. I gotta tell you, it was, they didn't see what we were doing as valuable. They said, all these people living in the temple, they should be working and supporting their families. They're living in one room with their family and children. This is not proper life. This is not what we do in India. We had some houses on Roxborough Street, and I was living in one. We had one room, for our family. The men lived in the temple. It was just the women and children. And nobody was working in jobs, but we were here at 4 o'clock every day and worked till 10 at night, every day. And we were maintaining, but some, not all, but some of the Indian people were very unhappy with that. So they said, we're not going to give donations if you keep doing this. You have to stop this. People have to start living properly. And they made us sell those houses, or they would stop giving money. And by then we were kind of more dependent on them because things were much bigger. So that was very heartbreaking that, and that's when a lot of people left to go to other communities. And then things really changed a lot in those days. We had rough times in the 90s, and ISKCON Toronto was rough. But then things started picking up after that. And once Kirtananda was gone and devotees started to really see the right way to be. And I mean, yes, we did go get jobs. I went back to school. I did a master's degree and I worked for 30 years at Toronto General Hospital. Krishna Das went to RT school, our respiratory therapy school. He worked for 30 years at Sikkim. I mean, we all went and got jobs to take care of our families, to be, as Prabhupada said, respectable citizens. It's fine to be in the ashram for some time. You learn how to be a devotee. You learn good devotional practices. You get educated and immersed in the philosophy. But then you need to move on and be what Prabhupada wanted, part of society, but also a devotee. That was his plan. Yeah. But I'll tell you, those days when it was just on the street, we would have one piece of waxed paper for our meals. So we would rip off waxed paper. We didn't even afford plates. So we put the waxed paper on the floor. Then Ayojapati would come out with the dishes, 3 chickpeas, 1 spoon of rice, 1 spoon of sabji, and half a chapati, something like that. You could have half a cup of milk, but if you were pregnant, you got a full cup of milk. So that was a long time like this, very austere. Sunday feast, you could eat as much as you want. That would be the one day when there'd be so much prasadam. And the funny, oh my God, some of the devotees are so funny. They'd eat so much sugar from the sweet rice and they'd be like intoxicated. Remember once that these devotees were out in the backyard, Sri Kari and some others, and they were looking at these ants and they were going, they want to be Krishna's devotees, how can we help them? I said, no more sweet rice for you. It was fun days. We were kids,
Yeah, when you were kids, that's probably was the way to live, and you can overcome many things when you're enthusiastic and young and
healthy.
And those obstacles, just the way of facing challenges. It's challenging, right?
Yeah.
You survive. But when you are like older now, after 40s, and you have those challenges in life, what is the secret to maintain faith and being faithful?
Yeah, I know. It's a challenge. That's the word, challenge. Yeah, because you have so many things in your life that you have to do. So many responsibilities to do. Yes. But one of the responsibilities is to maintain your Krishna consciousness however you can. And the biggest thing is association and to do service according to your propensity and what you like to. Like my service is hardly nothing here. I do all Zoom calls. I do high-level administrative work for ISKCON. I've worked for the GBC actually. I'm on org dev and we do all kinds of managerial and work for the GBC. So that's my kind of work. But you have to find the work that you like. I was a manager at the hospital, so I'm good at that. So that's all. It's not like I'm special anyway. It's just that's my propensity, I do it. So if your propensity is something else, do it. But, be true to yourself. Think how you are serving your own spirit soul, how you are associating with other devotees to have that, love and care. Because if you don't have that, you have nothing. Those devotees that go away and just want to be bhajan and andis, they don't last. You have to have association. That's why this is so nice. The Russian-speaking community is so nice. I wish we had English-speaking non-Indian community. Then we could bring more people who wouldn't feel so alienated. Sunday feast is just too much. Anyway, we're thinking about what to do. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Praharana Devi Dasi ki jai.